Governor Greg Abbott ordered Texans to lower their flags to honor the life and years of service of Congressman and former Houston Mayor Sylvester Turner. He died on Wednesday in D.C., where he only began his first term in Congress a little over 2 months ago. Plus, the Texas House agreed this morning to let Turner's body lie in honor there next week.
This afternoon, we are joined by two former lawmakers who served alongside Turner in the Texas House of Representatives. Such a long history of service here in our state. Dennis Bonnen is a former House Speaker who represented Southeast Texas, while Mark Strama previously served as a Democratic state representative for the Austin area. Welcome back to you both. So I'm grateful for you both to be here. But, before serving as Houston's mayor and a short time in Congress, Sylvester Turner spent nearly 27 years in the Texas House of Representatives with both of you. I'm wondering, as you heard about his death, what you were remembering or, memories you'd like to share about him.
Plain and simple, I don't like that lead-in. He's not a congressman. He's a Texas House member.
Always will be.
He's one of the best to ever do it. I admire and love Sylvester Turner beyond belief. He truly is. There may be someone as good, but there is no one who was better at being a Texas House of Representatives member. He was extraordinary. He knew how to turn it on. He fought for the little people. He had his, what do you call it, the abacus or whatever.
I was wondering about that. Yeah, I've seen a lot of tweets about that.
But he was extraordinary because his success was incredible, and it was done with respect to his colleagues. It was done with respect and admiration for his constituents. And his dream was to be the mayor of Houston, and I'm glad he got to do that. And I cried yesterday. I'm holding emotions now. Sylvester Turner is one of the best to ever serve the state of Texas, plain and simple.
Same. I got to know Sylvester before I was a state representative because I started my career in politics as a staff member for State Senator Rodney Ellis. And Sylvester Turner's House district was in that Senate district, so I got to watch him at the very beginning of his political career. He was a Harvard Law School graduate, but he was from the community that he represented. As Dennis characterized it, he never left that community. He never stopped representing that community, even when he had spent a career at a pretty high level in Texas politics. He was loved. He was also feared.
Oh, we were terrified of him.
Never for being mean.
No.
He was always diplomatic. He was always gentlemanly. But I don't think you could say this of any other member I've ever observed or served with. His oratorical skills put fear into anybody on the other side of it. And if you saw him coming to the back microphone, which he didn't do very often, but the back mic is where you challenge the protagonist in the debate.
Sure.
You really just wanted to crawl into a hole. I actually was on the other side of him one time on an energy-related issue, and it was not a fun place to be, but it was never personal. Never. He really did exemplify the best of the Texas legislature. He took some hard positions. He carved a unique path, one of those being his support for Tom Craddock when the Republicans finally gained a majority in the Texas House and could elect a Republican speaker. But I understand where he was coming from. I didn't agree with it, but he was trying to preserve the tradition of bipartisanship in the House, which has been the subject of so much debate ever since.
Sure, and he will lie in honor at the Texas Capitol next Thursday and Friday.
He absolutely should.
Yeah.
I think we could probably spend a whole show.
I wish we would. You're right, we could. I wish we would.
I mean, only if we could go and get the clips. It wouldn't be worth listening to us talk about him.
We need to see the highlights.
So you should do an hour-long show taking his best of,
you want to move on.
His greatest hits.
Mark works and runs the Institute on Civility. Sylvester Turner was the epitome of civility.
He was.
With extraordinary success.
Thanks to both of you for those words and getting to know him from a personal perspective. We really appreciate it. We do want to turn now. We had some big news this morning in the political world. We had the results of a new University of Texas politics poll that is giving a bit of insight into what Texas voters want to see from inside the Texas Capitol. So I do want to bring up a few of the results of this poll. We know that this happened last month. It was for 1,200 self-declared registered voters. And here's a few of the things that we saw those voters agree on. They really want lawmakers to focus on improving reliability for the state's energy grid. We saw costs, lowering costs, reducing property taxes high on that list of priorities for Texans, and then increasing healthcare access. There were a few places they actually all agreed they wanted to see less time spent. Some interesting standout things here. 44% said they actually would see less time spent on expanding legal access to abortion services. This one, we know we have talked a lot about, Dennis and Mark, with both of you. It's a top priority for the Texas governor. These are school choice, the voucher program that we have seen as a priority. 39% of respondents to the poll said that they'd actually see less time spent on that. And then, of course, they're at the end talking about the focus on regulation for cannabis products. So we threw a lot of numbers at the audience there. We just want to get your reaction. Anything that stood out as surprising, or do you think that Texas lawmakers are in line with what these voters said they want their lawmakers to do?
First thing I noticed is this morning, State Representative Cody Harris got a low bill number, meaning it's a priority of the Speaker, on House Bill 14 to have the state help propel nuclear energy in Texas. So that was number one. They wanted energy and grid reliability. Nuclear is a key component of that with other things. And so you saw the Speaker of the House with Cody Harris this morning. Clearly, we're in line with that poll. I do find it interesting that you see some of these things that, maybe they're not as interested in, which, that shows maybe some of these issues need to be talked about more in some ways, to be honest. I think some of it, how you present the issue is what makes a big difference. But I think the grid reliability of the energy, you're seeing both the House, the Senate, the governor, that's also a priority, the governor, the nuclear bill. So you're seeing them work together on that. Water, I found interesting not to be there. Water is a priority of Governor Abbott, Lieutenant Governor Patrick, and Speaker Burrows. And water is a huge issue for Texas. So I'll be quiet and let Mark jump in there, but I found that interesting not to show up.
Yeah, what stood out to you when you were looking at those numbers?
Actually, it's a long poll, and the data that stood out to me is
so
the same data that
yeah.
y'all showed, actually. So I'm glad you put those numbers up. That was what struck me. The thing that struck me on the side of the issues that were high priorities to the voters was that they're not particularly ideological issues, and that there's broad opportunity for bipartisanship on all three of those issues, and I expect there will be on all three of those issues bipartisan support for initiatives, and I suspect there will be action on all three of them. But what stood out more than anything else was the low interest in taxpayer-funded vouchers. I mean, it's interesting to see it juxtaposed against as even lower than on abortion, but on abortion, that's an issue that breaks cleanly along partisan lines. In the poll, you can actually look at the cross tabulations and see who feels strongly about vouchers and who doesn't. And it had surprisingly little support among even Republicans. Not none, it had material support among Republicans. In a Republican primary, it's probably still a net positive, not a net negative. But it's clearly not a high priority for Republican primary voters. And that, I think, opens up a little bit of a new dimension to the discussion we're about to have for the remainder of the session on the issue.
Yeah, and we will just change the page just a little bit, because we want to ask you about one more thing that happened this week. So it was the first meeting of the Texas version of DOGE. It's the what is it again? It's the
delivery of
government efficiency. I wanted to say division, but it's delivery of government efficiency for there. So the committee met. They're saying that it's a little bit different than what the federal is doing, the federal end of this, led by billionaire Elon Musk. So what do you think about this effort to be able to focus on government waste or additional spending that they want to focus on? What do you think about that?
I think it's a great idea. I'm glad Speaker Burrows created a specific committee, and the chair of that is Representative Giovanni Capriglione, who's one of the more thoughtful, intelligent, studious members of the Texas House. So I think it's a great committee with great leadership. But it is a little different, and I want to make sure people understand the difference. You know what the difference is? We don't have bloated agencies in government in Texas. You've had efficient government in Texas for 2 decades plus. So we don't have what they're fighting in Washington. What this is to go in and figure out a more efficient way, not only within the government, but also that partnership between private business and industry. Are there regulations at maybe TCEQ or regulatory agencies that need to be removed and pulled back so that we can more efficiently bring business and jobs into Texas? This is not about taking a machete to jobs at state agencies. It's about being very precise in that.
Yeah, I mean, do you think, though, that the branding of DOGE carries baggage, though, because people are now associating what's happening at the federal level with mass layoffs and budget cuts to maybe what could happen here?
I think in the public minds, that is a risk. I hope that at the legislative level, people view it the way Dennis just described it. I actually agree with his assessment of it. I'm involved on a few of the bills that are going through that committee. I believe that there are some well identified needs for regulatory reform to reduce the burden of some of the permit acquisition and things that prevent us from being great at building stuff in this country. I'd love to see the legislature take action on that, and I'd love to see that committee address those issues without it being tainted by the ideological freight that comes from the name DOGE because of what's happening at the federal level.
So much to cover. I also want to circle back that the results of those the polling that we just talked about and the hearing yesterday at DOGE at the Texas Capitol. You can read a lot more about that. We've had reporters on both of those stories. So if you're interested in those topics, you can dig into that right now on our website, KXAN.com. But Dennis and Mark, thank you so much for joining us and for your context today.
Thank you.